So this is an interesting one, right? So we actually had this with a customer recently who was trying to monitor syslogs from Windows. So one of the things that you can do is you can actually install the OpenTelemetry Collector on Windows, and if you configure it correctly, you'll see that we can actually get Windows event logs out of here. Right? Just configure the receivers and send the data to the logs index. And we do that because we want to use elastic streams for this data. Now, what Elastic Streams does really, really well is a couple of things. Firstly, it can partition the data. So all the data that's coming into Elastic from this configuration, you can see we've configured it to send the data to Elastic here. And I've put all this in my GitHub repository, which I can put in the comments there. And so you can actually get all these Windows events into Elastic and use this new Elastic feature called Streams to partition the data, to structure the data if you need to do that, and also to find significant events in the data, which can be quite interesting for Windows events. Now, this is quite an interesting use case. So let's dive in, right? So we've installed the collector on here, we've configured it, we're sending the data to the new Elastic Streams endpoint here, logs, and we're getting those Windows event logs. Now, the first thing we want to do is, if you go into the logs index here, we want to partition the data. So we want to essentially separate all the log data into really nice buckets. You can see here we're using AI to essentially fingerprint the logs to correctly partition the logs into different buckets. So you can see here that we already have some really good buckets. So it's separated some streams testing that I did, some logs there. Also Service Control Manager, Windows Security Auditing, Windows File Manager. And you can actually, if you have more logs in your Windows environment, you'll see that it partitions this really, really nicely into really nice buckets for Windows. So we're going to actually go ahead and create these streams. You can see here that what happens is that we now put all these logs into separate buckets, so they're nicely organized and you can actually see what's happening. And if we go down into through all of these and select all of these, you can see that we're creating all the different streams, all the different buckets where the data is going to go. And it's done a really nice job of figuring out exactly how to bucket these, which I think is really fantastic. And then if you have a look here, you can see how we've segregated out the various logs, which is really, really nice. And then in addition to this, what we can do is we can go in here and we can actually do something called significant events. So we can actually identify features in the logs to figure out which systems they belong to, for example, if it happens to be systems. But we'll see exactly what it does here. It's clustering our data. It'll be interesting to see how it identifies what this is. Analyzing query results. Again, this is all backed by LLMs. So you can see the idea is that we will get a notification. We'll be able to see if there is any significant event related to this. So you can see here, Service Control Manager, it's actually analyzed exactly what this is. It's telling us a little bit of information about it. It's giving us context about what the system is and what types of things to look out for. So that's the first step. We bring that in here. And then what we can do is we can use this Windows Service Control Manager and generate suggestions. So what it's going to do now is it's going to actually look at our logs and figure out what types of things are likely to be wrong in the Windows Service Control Manager. And if any of these problems do occur, then obviously, like I said, we will get some visibility into what the problem is. And if these problems occur. So, again, we're using an LLM to look at the logs to figure out what types of problems are likely to be found in Windows Service Control Manager. And if those problems occur, as you can see here, things like service crashes, startup boot failures, critical Windows services, things like that, we can bring all these in. And now Elastic is looking out for any problems related to any of these things in the logs here, which is really, really fantastic. You can see the severity that's been attached to these. You can see that, this one, for example, a service crash is critical. And then we can immediately get some sense of if there is a problem occurring in our logs. It bubbles it up fairly quickly, and we can even, click on this and it will give us the query that we need to find any logs that are related to this problem. So what we've done here is we've ingested all our data using OpenTelemetry from Windows events. We've partitioned them nicely into separate buckets, and then what we've done is we've used the significant events to figure out whether there are any particular problems that might be occurring in those log files that we should be looking out for, especially these critical severity issues. And this is all driven by LLMs. So the partitioning is an LLM and a machine learning based methodology that we use to actually pick apart the different buckets. And then significant events is again using LLMs to figure out what problems are likely to be occurring in Windows Service Control Manager logs to bubble those up without any manual intervention. So as you can see, Elastic Streams can really work with so many different use cases. One here, for example, with Windows that you may not have expected to see here from Elastic Streams. So, there are so many different use cases that we can use Streams for. The only barrier is your imagination.